There's so many videos on Facebook and on YouTube that talk about germinating seeds. So I thought, how can I make this one different? Stay tuned and find out some really good tips and tricks that will change the way that you grow from seed forever. So I was having a conversation with Mr. Shammas, the founder and CEO of Dr. Earth, the other day, and his primary concern was really just helping people get started right this year with their gardens. As we're approaching that January, February time of year, for a lot of us, things are just now starting to warm up, and that garden season is gonna be here in the blink of an eye before you know it. So this is a perfect time to make a video showing you guys exactly how you should start your seeds this year so you can have success in your garden and prepare adequately for your gardening season this year. So of course you can never go wrong using some Dr. Earth soil, and that's what I'm going to be using today. I'm going to be using their Root Zone seed starting mix. Now this is the best seed starting mix you can find right now. It's unbelievable. It is 100% organic, people and pet safe, OMRI certified, every certification, accreditation you can think of. This mix has it, but that's not even what makes it great. That's just a bonus. The fantastic thing about the Dr. Earth Root Zone seed starting mix is that it's one of the few soils that actually has mycorrhizae fungi in it. So as that seed germinates and those roots start to develop, they immediately are hit with that beneficial fungi, all those beneficial nutrients, and it really prepares them for success when they get moved to your garden later in the season. Now, we as a society have often been taught that when it comes to growing plants, you need chemicals, you need artificial things to help grow your plants, and stuff that's organic, it just doesn't work as well. And the reality is that in the gardening world, it's actually the complete opposite. We're very well aware at Dr. Earth that the average gardener is not going to look at the back of a bag of Dr. Earth and say, oh, that's great, there's some kelp meal and seaweed extract in there. The reality is that Dr. Earth is really focused on your plants and on the soil at a biological level. Not everybody cares about the microbiology of the soil and has time to read about amino acids, cytokinins, auxins, and a plethora of other chemicals and nutrients that vastly affect plant growth. Another incredible thing about Dr. Earth Seed Starter Mix that really shows that they pay really close attention to detail is that every single seed starter mix is perfectly moistened to a 42% moisture level, which is scientifically the perfect moisture level for seeds to start to absorb that water and begin the germination process as quickly as possible. But of course, regardless, when germinating seeds, moisture is extremely important. So if you're somebody who likes to pre-moisten your soil, then go ahead and feel free to do that. As long as it's not soaking wet, you should be good. The soil is a living, breathing thing. And the most important thing that Dr. Earth provides is to feed that living, breathing thing so that your plants succeed year in and year out. And Dr. Earth does this in an organic and natural way that has been happening since the beginning of time. You might be wondering, why choose this stuff over the cheap stuff if the cheap stuff works just fine? And the reality is the cheap stuff does work just fine at a surface level. If you want to feed your soil for years and years and continue supplying that breathing, living organism that is the soil in your backyard, in your garden, with the proper nutrients and microbes that it needs so that you can keep going back there year after year without having to just keep dumping more and more artificial fertilizer in there to get your plants to yield the same amount, then Dr. Earth is perfect for you. Now you might be wondering what these plants are here. I have different types of lettuce. We have some Ozark strawberries, some kale, some mint. These are herbs and vegetables that are fantastic to start growing this time of year so you can harvest them in a few months from now. And so that's primarily what the type of seeds that we are going to be starting today is stuff that's fantastic to grow at this time of year and stuff that is going to be a little bit cold resistant as it continues to grow. And when springtime hits and when the real growing gardening season hits, these will be ready to harvest before it gets too hot, and they're going to be fantastic for you. Picked up a ton of seeds. We have beans, we have cilantro, we have lettuce, we have broccoli, we have basil. We have all different types of seeds. Of course, they're all 100% organic. You can choose whatever seeds are to your liking. Just remember that this time of year, it's still a little bit cold out for a lot of us, so just make sure you're not starting seeds too early. Most of the time, the back of the packets of the seeds will have what time you should start the seeds at and what month, depending on what zone you're growing in. So it's really important to look out for that as you start growing. And I picked up a couple of seed starting trays. These are fantastic for really getting your seeds started right this year. There's a bunch of different options for seed starters. Mainly what you're looking for with a seed starting tray is just something that has a lot of individual pockets, just like this. You don't want them too big, but not too small as well. And then you want something, this is the other key component to making sure you have a good seed starting tray or block, is to have something with a hood over it, some sort of plastic hood that you can put over it, something to cover it. And what that's going to allow it to do is to keep the humidity controlled throughout the germination process, which is really important for not only germinating healthy seeds, but making sure your seeds germinate quickly and it doesn't take weeks for you to get any sort of growth. Now you might be wondering why I'm holding a carton of eggs right now. And the simple answer to that is not everybody has time or money, and I totally get that, to go out and just buy a seed starting tray. So a perfect alternative for you to save money and save time is to just get in a carton of eggs, and this one obviously is full right now. But if you have an empty carton of eggs laying around, then these actually make perfect, cheap DIY seed starters. As you can see, they have perfect little pockets right here where you can put your soil and plant your seed. And guess what? It even has its own makeshift hood to help you control that humidity throughout the germination process. So this is a perfect alternative for those of you who maybe want to upcycle, recycle, are into that sort of thing, or maybe you just want to save a little bit of money. That is totally fine. These things aren't always super cheap, especially if you have a lot of seeds to germinate. So this is a perfect option for you if you fall into that category. It really doesn't take much at a biological level to get a seed to germinate. It takes a little bit of water, a little bit of heat, and as soon as that water seeps in, the seed immediately goes from its dormant stage into a hyperactive stage where it starts absorbing that water. First out come the roots, so they can absorb more water, and then the plant immediately starts to send shoots towards the surface so it can get sunlight out from underneath the soil and begin the photosynthesizing process. This is something that plants have been doing since the beginning of time. So the reality is, while seed germination at its basic and core function is not a very difficult thing to perfect, to master, and to accomplish, this is more about setting up your seed for success as it grows into a seedling and eventually an older plant. You have to remember that gardening is months and months of investment of your time, and you want to make sure that you do it right, not just for the first week, the second month, but throughout the entirety of the season, so that you can continue to have very prosperous yield, even if you're gardening in something like a container. What I'll do, and what I like to do, is just, I've got my vacuum nearby, so no need to stress out if I spill some of this, right? So I can just come through here and go to this tray, and I'll just start pouring some of this soil out. And the thing I like about these trays a lot is it makes it a lot easier for you to kind of go through this process of just getting your seeds started, getting this soil out. You can kind of just lower your bag right here. Let's see if that's enough for us. Now you're gonna make a little bit of a mess, that's okay. Keep that vacuum nearby. And you just spread it out until you get all that soil nice and even in all these little pockets. Once you have it to where you have most of these little pockets filled up with soil, you can go ahead and just kind of take them and brush them off, just so you can kind of just get these clear unified pockets. Brush them. I like to brush them out to the side, just in the direction of where it needs to get filled, and that soil will slowly eventually just kind of fill things in. These little corners just need a little bit more, and we should be good right there. So something just to add really quick, if you open up a bag of soil and it's bone dry, for sure, just add a little bit of water to it just to moisten it up. It does need to just be a little bit moist. You definitely don't want it to be like bone dry as you're putting it into these trays. It'll make it a little bit more of a pain to kind of get your seeds started properly. So you don't need to pre-moisten the soil if it's already a little bit wet. If you choose to do so, that is totally up to you, but you don't need to unless it's just completely bone dry. So for this tray, I'm going to be planting a couple different varieties of lettuce and then just some carrots and some cauliflower. So let's get started on that. Now what I like to do, since I'm already going to have a permanent marker nearby to label my tray after I actually do all the planting, it actually makes a perfect tool to make a little cavity if you just press it into the soil to actually deposit your seeds into. It does a really good job. So I'll actually just press it in there into each individual pocket, and those will give me perfect little pockets to plant my seeds into whenever I get to that part. Now, as you can see, the permanent marker did its job. We have a perfectly set up tray here to start planting some seeds. So let's get started. So first I'm gonna do some little gem lettuce. Next we've got some limestone bib lettuce. Now with each one of these pockets, you want to put a good amount of seeds in them, usually at least a few, but you can put up to 10, 15 seeds. The best rule of thumb is to just read. A lot of times the seed packets will tell you on the back how many seeds you should put in each one and how far you should space them out, especially if you're not using a starter like this. So just always refer to that if you want the specific information. But you always want to put at least a good few amount of seeds in each spot, because not all of those seeds are going to germinate properly, and the plants will actually kind of compete with each other in a sense, and the healthiest ones will sprout out. Just don't stress out too much about the number of seeds. Some people like to freak out about the number of seeds going in each one. As long as it's literally not just a pile of seeds, you're golden, you're good. So what we'll do now is we're going to go ahead and just take some small handfuls of the soil from our seed starter mix and kind of just sprinkle it over the top. This is what I like to do. It just makes it a lot easier. Just make sure whenever you're brushing the soil off like we did earlier that you are not pushing your seeds out of their little pockets. The goal here is to make sure the seeds stay right where they are. So I'm just going to take a little soil and push that right over the top. Now our seeds are perfectly planted and we're almost done. So our next step is going to be to water our seeds. This step you have to be very careful. Make sure that when you're watering your seeds, you're using extremely low water pressure so you don't splash up that soil and push around the seeds at all. You want to just use a very low amount of water pressure, and even if it's easier for you, maybe just use a mister bottle to actually wet your soil and dampen your soil. That'll make sure that those seeds don't actually get pushed around. So here I just have a very low water pressure, and I'm just gonna kind of sprinkle it across the top of the seed soil here, just very gently, just all around here, just to get it a little bit damp. I don't want to put too much water, and I definitely don't want to push around those seeds at all. All done. So now you've got your seeds planted in the soil, you've got that soil moistened down, now you're almost ready to go and ready to get those seeds going. And so our final step to getting these seeds prepped and ready to go and off to a good start is to cover them up like we said earlier, so we can retain that humidity, that temperature. So something I like to do to just give it a little bit of airflow, make sure the seeds don't get moldy or too damp, is to just poke a couple of holes in whatever it is that I'm using to cover the seeds with, just to kind of help with airflow a little bit. Just if you're going to do this, it's not necessary, but I found that it helps quite a bit. Just do it very carefully. Now the last thing I like to do, just to make sure that I have everything properly labeled, is I like to take some clear tape, or you can use masking tape or any type of tape that you have just lying around the house. And what I'll do is I'll actually take a Sharpie and I'll write down on the clear tape what plant it is, what seed it is. Some people, they like to stick toothpicks in the soil and do whatever. That works totally fine. It's whatever works for you. I like to just basically tape some plastic tape right here at the top, just so I don't have to actually mark the plastic hood. And then I will write what I am growing right there, and I know exactly what that is. So now that I have my container labeled and moist, all the seeds moistened and covered, now it's ready to just go sit next to a windowsill or just anywhere that's not too humid or too dry, and make sure it's not like right next to an air conditioner or anything crazy like that. Just keep it at a mild temperature and just check the humidity day by day. Now, with that being said, a great tip for growing and germinating seeds: if you live in a colder climate and you don't have an area that's maybe very well temperature controlled, maybe like a garage or a courtyard or something like that, a heat mat that you can buy online or at any major retailer works perfectly fine for maintaining some heat while those seeds are going through their germination process. And it's really just that simple. Now your plants are on their way to starting, and you're on your way to starting an extremely healthy garden this year, especially if you're growing from seed. Now stay tuned, as I'll be following along this process and making other videos showing you how to transplant once we get to that point, and how to check on your seeds as they start to germinate. Now it's only been a couple of days and most of my seeds have already germinated and are looking extremely healthy and great, and are off to a great start to becoming healthy and delicious plants later in the season. While this isn't supposed to be an advertisement, I'm telling you, the Dr. Earth seed starting mix biologically is the best possible thing that you can use for starting your seeds this year. I hope that this helps you guys start a fantastic garden this year, maintain a fantastic garden this year, and hopefully have some fantastic yield. I'll see you in the next one.